Hey guys, I'm back like I never left. Now on today's episode of In Alignment with T.
Y'all acting like this ain't the most beautiful woman of all time. I don't give a fuck what type of jacket she got on.
Pretty privilege is like winning a lot of money in the lottery. But then you have all these people hounding you like they're entitled to your money. I asked him why he wanted to be with me so badly. All he could come up with was, I want my kids to have a hot mom. Really?
I kind of lean towards more like petite. My favorite attribute is like lips, but
How is it that you are single? Oh, this one. When a beautiful girl enters a room, the other women feel instantly less attractive.
You are going to choke.
Stop wearing makeup, change the way that you dress, do this, do that. Negging. This is how many insecure people try to land a more attractive partner. You're only saying these things because you are insecure and you don't like yourself. And that's fine, because I know what it is now. Beautiful women inspire a lot of anger. Out of nowhere, I just see a drink thrown in my face. Chelsea lied to him and said she looked like Megan Fox. She made a video on being the ugly friend. I don't know if you're actually pretty or if it's just because you're light-skinned. He was on like the same level of attractiveness as like Flavor Flav. I don't know why he felt like he was in any position to speak about anyone's attractiveness. So far, I have been stalked, I've been harassed, I've had to get a restraining order against someone. The list goes on. Whenever I meet someone and I feel like they're a bit more superficial or they're very focused on looks, it does sound off to me as a bit of a red flag. Welcome back to In Alignment with T. To those of you who've been here all along, and for all the new followers and subscribers, I'm more than grateful that you've chosen to join us. Today's topic is the much awaited topic of pretty privilege. And it took me a while to eventually film this topic because it kind of felt like it might be a bit controversial, and it's also a very difficult topic to speak about. Because you have to be really careful with how you communicate certain things, and it's one of those topics that's also very tough to speak about because it's very easy for people to think you're kind of like patting yourself on the back, but I'm not doing this in any way, shape, or form. It's really important for me to put it out there that the intent with this episode is to shine a light on something that people may not fully understand, or maybe that it's something that people who only experience it can understand, and also that it's not it's not as rosy as people think it is, and that it does have shortcomings. It's a topic that also requires me to be honest, in some ways also brutally honest. I will draw upon reality. I will draw on certain things that happen in real life. I will draw on pop culture. And I do want to put it out there that in no way, shape, or form am I elevating some people above others or putting other people down, but I do have to be very honest in the way that I portray this in order to get the message across. So what exactly is pretty privilege? I think I would define beauty in relation to pretty privilege as the reality of being witnessed but rarely understood. I don't deny that there are benefits that come with this. I don't deny that it is a privilege, but there is a dark side that people don't usually discuss, right? We have stories of Helen of Troy, the face that launched 1,000 ships, the Angelina Jolies of the world, Marilyn Monroe, Dorothy Dandridge. Although both Marilyn Monroe and Dorothy Dandridge did have quite tragic ends, we could move on to somebody like Kim Kardashian or Emily Ratajkowski. You can't speak about them, their fame, or their achievements without also speaking about their beauty and their bodies. Cleopatra, who's been accused of using her feminine wiles to lure Mark Antony or Caesar. There's so many references to women and beauty and all of that. But I think, and I think it's also important for me to like define what pretty privilege actually is. So pretty privilege is the belief that conventionally attractive people, or people who are exceptionally attractive rather, have a leg up in life. And that's absolutely true. There is no denying that. The social question I'd like to pose, which is a social question that many have posed before me, is basically questioning how true that notion really is. And not on the surface level, based off of the things that you see or the privileges that you can see that are tangible, like people wanting to open doors, or people offering certain jobs, or people having more romantic options, but more on the human level. And I believe that regardless of the countless superficial benefits to beauty and attractiveness, I would actually like to argue that unfortunately, all of those benefits do absolutely nothing for the soul.
From her perspective, how does the world truly respond to her beauty?
Proximity to beauty is something that men desire and women, and some women, despise, which I can understand. For some men, being in the presence of a beautiful woman or having a beautiful woman on your arm could mean a symbolism of your success or your status or what you've acquired, because it would take so much for you to have access to that woman. And for other women, it's a beautiful woman or an extremely beautiful woman or an exceptionally beautiful woman can highlight your insecurities. I happen to have very stunning friends who also had very interesting experiences. And I think this is where like we can look into bullying, for example, which is something that I'm going to break down throughout the video. Walking into a restaurant and seeing a couple sitting at a table, the man is gawking at you, the girlfriend's giving you a dead stare, right? I think that's something that happens a lot of the time, and it's very uncomfortable. I mean, the man is the one at fault, but you get the brunt of it, because that kind of stuff does happen. There is no denying that being exceptionally attractive means that you are in a better position to have access to more potential partners, job opportunities, doors open for you. But I think there's also like a darker side to it. For this segment of the episode, I'll be reading a bunch of experiences that women have had in relation to the way that they've had to exist in society, being considered conventionally or exceptionally attractive, and the things that they've struggled with. So I think one of the things that actually sparked my thoughts on pretty privilege was 2 years ago. I came over Steph Co's, I think her name is Steph Co's YouTube channel. And she had posted a video. She made a video on being the ugly friend and not having pretty privilege and how that reality was for her. And I think it then led me down like a whole rabbit hole on pretty privilege and the different sides of it, and for the people who have it and the people who don't. So she recently posted a video because she's done a bunch of follow-up videos, and on one of the follow-up videos I was going through the comments and I thought some of the stuff on there was quite interesting and insightful, so I thought I would throw in some of that stuff onto the video as well. So here it goes. One of the commenters says, before watching the video, I'm going to say I think pretty privilege is like winning a lot of money in the lottery. It's absolutely a privilege to have all that money, but then you have all these people hounding you like they're entitled to your money. Absolutely. People on the street, especially men, when you're in a relationship with someone, going back to the person who would tell you to stop wearing makeup, change the way that you dress, do this, do that. It's kind of like there is almost like a commoditizing or monopolizing your looks. It's very strange. Pretty privilege, another person says, pretty privilege is a privilege. It makes your life easier generally. However, at the end of the day, it's the same misogyny that harms women regardless of their appearance. Our enemies are not women who are more or less attractive than us, but the misogynistic society which places undue importance on a woman's appearance. Absolutely. I think when it comes to your job, so long as you're clean and you're well dressed and you don't take up way too much space in a way where you're inconveniencing other people, I don't think it should affect your career. I don't think it should affect anything. I think the only moment where it could be a factor in terms of appearance is attraction in a relationship. But I think even within a relationship, there's too much weight being put on it. There's so much more that goes into a relationship outside of just looks. Someone else says, supermodel and actress Paulina Porizkova, who describes herself as a nerd in a model's body, experienced the same negative aspects of pretty privilege that this woman in your video mentions. In 2021, in an interview, Paulina described how her former husband, singer Rick Ocasek, frontman for the rock band The Cars, changed and became cold towards her as she began to age. That's so terrifying. She mentioned feeling as though he married her for her youth and beauty, but did not truly like her. She said he found her personality boring and admitted she felt worthless in their marriage. Today, she's in a better place mentally and promotes self-acceptance without plastic surgery, especially for older women. At the end of the day, beauty truly can be both a blessing and a curse. Those who have it can feel just as lonely, standing in a room full of admirers, as the ones without it, sitting at home alone. I absolutely agree. I think for me as well, I can absolutely relate to that. I think whenever I meet someone and I feel like they're a bit more superficial or they're very focused on looks, it does sound off to me as a bit of a red flag, because especially as a woman, it's like, I'm gonna get pregnant one day and I'm gonna have babies and my body is gonna change. And am I gonna do my best to work on myself and improve and get back to where I was? Hopefully, great. Would I also opt for help from possibly Dr. Miami one day? Who knows, maybe. But I think it's something that's really important to know, that you have a partner that loves you for more than just that. It's like, so what? My body's going to change after giving birth to your child, and what are you going to do? Leave me? Are you going to cheat on me? Are you going to devalue me? So that's definitely something that's a concern when it comes to relationships. Someone being too heavy on the superficial is a bit scary. Someone else said, ask a man why he loves you. 8 times out of 10, he'll list what you do for him. Not so much who you are. So whether it's because he likes how you make him look because you're pretty, or because you break your back sacrificing for him, men center themselves. I think it's time that women center themselves too. Another person says, the struggle is pretty similar. Only being picked because of your appearance versus never being picked because of your appearance. In the end of the day, you're still lonely and unloved. Someone else says, men will 100% date based on wanting to impress. They are so looks and image focused. I absolutely agree. They will forego their own attraction just to fit in. Look at how athletes and rappers all date the same 10 girls. I absolutely agree. I actually sometimes appreciate the guys who date women that might not conventionally look a particular way, because you know then that they're going for what they actually like and not what would impress their friends. It's quite refreshing. Another person goes on to say, I think the thing missing from the discussion is the assumption that women who are deemed unattractive don't have to deal with men using them as well. It may not be for their looks, but it can definitely be for their resources or simply a body to have sex with. Fair enough. These things still happen to those people as well, just with a smaller pool of men. And then the other half of them get overlooked. It's not like once these unattractive people find someone, they just know that that person really wants to be with them, for who they are. If you're attractive, bad men will try to exploit that. If you're not very attractive, but have other things, bad men will try to exploit that too. But overall, looking better in society has more pros than cons. Not many people are willing to go under the knife to make themselves uglier. But many people take dangerous risks for beauty because they know there is greater value in it. I absolutely agree. Most people go under the knife, risk so much to look beautiful. And I think sometimes it's not just about other people as well. People want to be attractive for themselves. It's nice to look into the mirror and like what you see. Absolutely. But I think when it comes to pressure, some of that pressure definitely comes from outside. I remember when I was younger, before the BBL craze, I never thought there was anything wrong with me. I thought I looked great. But as time went on, I was like, is my waist small enough? Is this in the right place? You start to really worry about what your body looks like. And I think it's to a degree that I think men don't experience. And I'm not saying that men don't experience this type of possible insecurity or pressure, but it's men's physical standards are achievable in the gym. Most of women's physical standards are not achievable in the gym, especially in this modern era. If it was about going to the gym, losing weight, and that would be great. But it's the proportions, the inhuman proportions, the impossible proportions that people go to the plastic surgery office to get is very difficult for women. And I think that like that kind of pressure can be very overwhelming, and it can mess with a person's self-esteem, most definitely, even when you are attractive. Another commenter goes on to say, I was working at a job once with this man who looked and sounded exactly like the Allstate guy. He had a beautiful black wife and a cute little son. But then he also invited me to his hotel room during a business trip. I was floored because his family looked perfect. His wife was a complete 10. He still wasn't satisfied. And I think that's something that I think a lot of women think about. It's like, even with the pressure to look perfect, even if you were to put in all the effort to look a certain way, to make sure you're prim, proper, perfect, that it's still never enough for some people, you know. And I think that's also like a pressure that I think some women do deal with, that even if you are a perfect 10, you can't win. Someone else says, also, I've never liked thee. How is it that you are single? Oh, this one, with so much shock. You'll think because you're fine as wine, you must be crazy or psychotic then. They'll fish for a flaw or a problem to justify you being single, asking, do you have children or a crazy baby daddy? And if you're intelligent with a nice personality and you're fun and self-sufficient, then they'll search for trauma, daddy issues. Anything to give them leverage to have a chance, or to justify why you aren't off the market, like it's impossible for you to choose to be single when you're beautiful and heterosexual. It usually boils down to them thinking it must be your fault. There must be something wrong with you. Otherwise, there's no way you could be single, as if beauty alone can sustain a healthy, successful marriage or union. And the truth is, just because someone has options does not necessarily always mean that those options are quality options. And even if those were quality options, or and the truth is, like, what's a quality option to one person is not a quality option to the other, right? So what one woman would tolerate is not what another would. Different people are looking for different things in their life. Some people are looking for success. A tall man that's handsome, that is successful, very easy to find. But some people are actually looking for more depth in their relationships and things that are beyond the superficial. So yeah, her not being in a relationship does not necessarily mean that she is not attractive or desirable. That's pretty obvious that she is, and it's not because she's deficient in any way or has bad moral character. Sometimes it's because she hasn't found what she's looking for. And the truth is, good-looking people find it harder to find relationships that have depth and relationships that are beyond the surface, because they tend to come across more superficial people. That's just sadly the reality. Another commenter says, I remember one of the gorgeous girls in middle school said one day, I wish I was fat and ugly like Chloe, so I would know guys truly love me for me. One, that's hurtful. Two, they forget men would date and marry even uglier women just for having someone for their labor at home and to have children. I absolutely agree, especially being Nigerian. Let me finish reading this comment before I get into it. Men are still misogynistic, ugly or not. Assuming that they are better with uglier women is a wild assumption. I absolutely agree. Coming from Nigeria, there are men who specifically marry women they are not attracted to. I've heard this happen so many times. They prefer women who they are not attracted to because they believe that it would be less distracting, that they would be able to focus more on work, that she would be a better person, that they wouldn't be so subjected to her. Because there's also like this assumption, well, I can't speak on it because I'm not a man, but there is a belief that men are susceptible to beautiful women, and that men are more likely to give a beautiful woman what she wants, either because they are highly attracted to her, so they're subjected and weak to her feminine wiles, or because they fear that she would go be with another man. But a lot of these men don't get with women they're attracted to, or women that are generally found attractive, because they believe if another man won't look at her, then I don't have to be too good to her because she will stay no matter what I do. Whereas there is a belief that a beautiful woman would require way more effort, and so they don't tend to marry beautiful women because for the long term, they don't want to be held down in that way. I think it's crazy, but it's very true. Men do that all the time. It's easier, apparently, to be with a woman who's unattractive. She would be more compliant because she has less options, apparently. Someone else says, wow, that girl was spot on. So I guess they're referencing somebody in the video. I can relate. Men will compromise values in order to be with a pretty girl. Absolutely. I am always the one to end things with a man, and it's exhausting. I once dated a man for 4 years. Towards the end of our relationship, I asked him why he wanted to be with me so badly. All he could come up with was, I want my kids to have a hot mom. Really? After 4 years of investing in this man, that's all he could come up with. I know there are bigger problems in the world, but this really sucks. Tell me about it. Like I said, you could be everything. You could be kind, intelligent, present, self-sufficient. You could be so many things. But unfortunately, there are really people out there who only put value in looks. And it's very strange because those are still the same people who will also say everything isn't about looks, but they make everything about looks. It's really sad. Someone else said, the blonde lady is right, again referencing someone who was in the video. I'll link this video in the description box so you can go back and watch all these things if you're interested. This was my experience. Some men wanted to use me for all my good aspects, but didn't expect to deal with all of my flaws or any of my flaws. Men are sometimes disappointed when attractive women have flaws. I'm also tall, and some men seemed to want to use me to have taller kids if they were short. Again, going back to the, if I were to gain weight, would he leave me? If my body was to change after children, would he leave me? I think that's definitely a thing. I think some people think that when they see you, especially when they see you for the first time, and they have this idea of your perfection, not knowing that, you got ready, you put some clothes on, you did your hair, you did your makeup and all that. They expect constant perfection out of you because they already have that idealized image in their mind. And that can be very tough to keep up with. We're aging. Like, do you get what I mean? Like, for me, it's like, I'm not married, I'm almost 30. And it's like, I'm going to age. I might have relatively good genes in terms of aging, but I will age. So by the time I have kids, it's going to probably be harder for me to lose a bit of weight because I've had kids later on in life. And it would just suck to be married to somebody who would be too superficial to understand that that's probably going to take a bit more time and all that stuff. So it is tough, but they do expect you to be perfect all the time. They've already idealized you. There's no changing, there's no moving. It's tough. It can cause a lot of damage to your self-esteem and your mental health. Someone else says, as someone who has benefited from pretty privilege, I can acknowledge that it is a privilege, but it does come with disadvantages. I totally get what she's saying. You tend to attract a lot of superficial men who are only interested in you based on looks and could care less about anything beyond the surface. It's tough. Absolutely agree. I've been used by men to flaunt around and impress their friends and co-workers. It does make you wonder sometimes if people actually like you or just the way you look. When you start to age and gain weight, are they going to leave? It used to make me very insecure to the point where I felt I had to look my absolute best at all times or else I wasn't valuable. Still, I can recognize that it is still a privilege and it does come with perks.
A few moments later.
There are a few stories about people's experiences. This poster says, I never considered myself attractive, but all through my teen years, I went through hell from bullying from unattractive girls and relentless sexual attraction from men. These experiences scarred me emotionally for life and turned me into a lifelong misanthrope. For anyone who might not know what that means, a misanthrope is somebody who just avoids and pretty much hates society, especially because of the experiences that they've had with people within that society. And I think with that comment, I can relate. When I was in secondary school, I won't mention any names. There were these two girls in particular. One was black, one was white. And I can remember those girls going through significantly higher rates of like assault and attacks and bullying, because at the time you might think those boys were flirting, but it was a form of bullying because of the shapes of their bodies. Also, as somebody who developed very early, I've definitely had experiences like that. I remember guys my age, guys older than me, making comments about my body and how developed my body was. By the time I was like 11, I remember hearing these types of comments, 11, 12, at a time where I didn't even know what these things meant. So it's tough. It's like people think people being attracted to you is great as a woman. And I think what men don't understand, because I think usually it's mostly men who also don't understand this, it's like, as a man, you might think having a lot of women who want you is fun. But what you don't understand from the female perspective is it also could mean danger. It could mean assault. So it's not what people think it is. And I think a man will never understand it until they find themselves, I don't know, magically or through some coincidence in a gay bar with a bunch of gay men trying to have a go at you. Then maybe you might be able to understand the female perspective of why it's not always fun to have a bunch of people wanting you like that. Somebody else says, I developed early, and because of this, I was both called a slut and treated cruelly by girls that thought I was in competition with the boys, for the boys, despite the fact that I was at school to learn. Absolutely. That happens all the time. It's not your fault, but people will bully you for things you cannot control. Somebody else said, it's weird and childish. Every time I enter a workplace, women just look at me with anger. And I think, are you really that insecure? Do you really feel that ugly because you see my face? Do you really need other men to tell you that you're good enough or pretty enough? I find the attention from men terrifying. To a degree, I agree. Women really tell me I should be happy that men harass me, while I am sometimes very scared. Are you that desperate that you will feel validation if a man harasses you? That's a very valid question. In my opinion, women are sometimes so stupid when it comes to this. They just ignore everything. Since I'm pretty, that means I have it all. It says more about them than it does about me, to be honest. It's hard for me to make friends, but I would not want to be friends with someone who is insecure. It's so tiring. I agree. But yeah, it's not fun and it's lonely. Every time I say something, it's a problem. I don't accept disrespect or men who try to control me by making me feel insecure because he is. It's true. Beautiful women are more likely to meet men who are insecure. And by proxy, those men will then want to make you insecure as well, because that will then make them feel good about themselves. Some men, I'll do a whole episode on this, but it's like there is no love without control for some men. So the only time they feel comfortable in their relationships is if they have a semblance of control. So that can be a serious struggle when a man is in a relationship with a woman that is exceptionally attractive. That's why I prefer good-looking men. People can't stand it that I don't accept such behavior, but I could care less. It's true. You are more likely to have a relationship that doesn't have that push and pull with a man that's physically attractive himself, although it doesn't completely protect you, because what people don't understand is what you're supposed to look for is not a man that's also physically attractive, but a man that is secure. Because an insecure, attractive man can still do the same thing. If he doesn't know how attractive he is, or if he doesn't feel good about himself and he doesn't have that confidence, he can also try to pull you down because of how he feels about himself. So it's less about how good looking he is, but it's definitely more about how secure he feels within himself. As far as bullying, women constantly lie to me to make themselves feel bigger. That's definitely true. It's almost pathetic. I'm happy for her in that moment, but later I think, why would she tell me that? Figures the reason. I absolutely agree. Some people will like throw in comments or say something about your looks or something, and it's like, if you felt so good about yourself, you wouldn't feel the need to make this commentary or this judgment about me, my body, or the way that I look or whatever. You're only saying these things because you are insecure and you don't like yourself, and that's fine, because I know what it is now. I think when I was younger, those things used to bother me, but then now I know why it's happening, because I've noticed, I'm like, sometimes someone could see me and somebody else have the exact same thing. They'll compliment the other person and never compliment me, or they'll make jabs at me, but they never make jabs at people who are clearly less attractive. It's very strange, but I know what it is now, so it doesn't really bother me anymore. Another person says, yes, I bloomed between 17 and 22. I tried to explain that it would end. They wouldn't leave me alone and called me all sorts of dirty names. Girls got jealous and chased me, tried to get me to fall into their traps. Males tried to force themselves on me. Then I got special treatment a few times because I had a look of innocence and kept having to be saved. I'm a happy hag these days sometimes. I'll wear makeup, but I'm a hag. People treat me better with makeup on, almost like it shows I care. I also bullied a pretty girl in high school. It wasn't her beauty that was the main problem. I wanted her crystal mind. I must say, she put up with me for a very long time. You'll discover people will try anything to harm you out of jealousy or anger. Enjoy your looks and respect yourself. Avoid your enemies. They aren't worth your happiness. It's absolutely true. Sometimes it might not be your looks, it might be other things about you. And I think people tend to struggle with people who sometimes seem like they have it all. Like if you happen to be good looking and you are then intelligent, well spoken, you have a light about you, you're happy, you're positive, people always feel like people always feel like it's not real. People always feel like it's not authentic, when the truth is it most likely is. It's probably the truth. And you are just living your truth. So I think people tend to struggle. People tend to struggle a lot with that, which is tough for them, I guess. Or somebody else says, plain jealousy or envy is why people bully pretty girls. It's interesting. I personally tend to get attacked by less attractive people, both men and women, almost never by people who are considered highly attractive. Of course, they don't have the time or the energy to do it. Somebody else said the same reason they tend to tear down successful people as well, to pull those people down in the social hierarchy. It may be to improve their own chances of success in some area, just to prevent someone else from being better. That's true. Someone else says, it's how it's always been people less attractive will find you a threat. So the only way to boost their self-esteem is to bring you down to their level. True. Pretty girls are judged before they even open their mouths. They are automatically assumed to be snobby or conceited. The prettiest girls are not included or invited out by other women due to their own insecurities. The prettiest, sweetest women are often the loneliest. Somebody asks, why are beautiful women judged so much more harshly than average or plain women by both men and women? And this person says, it's envy from women, and from a man, sour grapes, because he knows she is out of his league and he will never have her. Somebody says here, why do people treat beautiful women or girls better? And this is the response. Well, not exactly. My best friend was almost forced to change schools due to the fact that the girls there attempted to bully her senseless. Why would they do that? Because she's beautiful and successful. One girl in particular, let us call her R, was so bitter that she continuously told her to end her life. This is a picture of my friend. This is a screenshot from an Instagram post she shared earlier today. The girl's stunning. Picture's right there, as you can see. I understand why they'd feel jealous or threatened, but their actions led to her moving schools. We are not as close anymore. I honestly miss my best friend. Moral of the story, women can be bitter, ruthless, and mean when they feel threatened. I have to go anonymous because this girl I'm talking about follows me on Quora. Fair enough. Someone else asks, why do beautiful girls get bullied? Because when a beautiful girl enters a room, the other women feel instantly less attractive. The men they were speaking to stop and look and forget what they were saying. Other women may have a fair amount of confidence in themselves and think, I'm actually pretty cute. And then someone walks in with a perfect face and a perfect body, and you look at them and you realize that there is no amount of weight you could lose or clothes that you could buy that would ever make you look that good. And that pisses them off. It makes them feel inadequate and bitter. They want the beautiful girl to go away. They don't want their men to look at her. They feel like if they see her, they'll compare them to her. They think that their man is imagining her naked, and they get mad about what she is wearing. Does it show off her long, tan, cellulite-free legs? They think, ugh, put some clothes on, honey. You must be so insecure to seek validation by being half naked. The question is, why is your man looking? Some women have to dress like that because that's all they have to offer. She clearly has no brains. Ugh. Did you hear her laugh? How annoying. See how annoying and vapid that girl is. She seems like a materialistic gold digger. She's so fake. Followed by something like this to their man. That girl would never look at you twice. She doesn't want your old, fat, poor, loser ass, whatever it is, and she storms off. Are you ready to go? I'm tired. Yeah, beautiful women inspire a lot of anger. That's for sure. I've definitely experienced this, like walking into a restaurant or somewhere and a girl's with her man that I am not looking at all, and she gets very upset. I also have friends who've experienced the same thing, where it's like they get death stares when they walk into places and women are with their men. You know, it's tough. Someone else asks, why do some people treat beautiful women badly? And the person answers, jealousy. They don't think it's fair that the person is beautiful and they don't think they deserve to be treated well by them, since they already have beauty and the perks that go with it. Envy. They want to be beautiful, so they treat beautiful women badly so that those women will feel inferior, which makes the envious person feel more powerful. Contrarianism is also another reason. Rooting for the underdog. They feel like beautiful people already get everything they want, so they snub them to give them a feel for what it's like to not have the advantage of attractiveness. This is often paired with giving another person in proximity to that beautiful person more attention. Kind of like the story I said earlier about how an aunt told me to not feel like I was more attractive because I was lighter skinned. Stupid lady. Negging. They believe that if they treat a beautiful person badly, it will make the beautiful person crave their approval and attention. This is how many insecure people try to land a more attractive partner. I'm sure there are lots of other reasons, but these are some of them. I absolutely agree. I think some of these like red pill dating coaches have definitely told a lot of young men these days that if they make a woman feel like she's less attractive, maybe by like not liking her pictures or saying something about her or her body, or that it will make her want him more or give him more attention, or but it's like, yeah, that only works if the woman is insecure or if the woman doesn't know that you're playing games. But if she knows, it's like, it just makes you an idiot, because why are you an adult trying to gain the attention of someone through manipulation? You know? Someone else speaks about why do some people treat beautiful women badly? In most cases, people are intimidated by extremely good looking women. Insecure men mostly think that she is way out of their league, and since they can't have her, they choose to reject her in the worst possible manner before she gets to reject them. Women, on the other hand, are the obvious contender. Most of the people assume that since she's pretty, things come easy to her. There is another dimension to this kind of behavior. A beautiful woman who is somewhat in a vulnerable position socially or economically would invite a very harsh response from others. While if she is also smart and has social or economic power, then people are equally scared of her. That's absolutely true. People will take advantage of poor, beautiful women. It's kind of like how so many women end up in the music industry, in the modeling industry, into prostitution, sex trafficking. They are easily exploited if they don't have any power. And then if they have power, they hate them even more, being attractive and having that power. Somebody actually gives an answer. It's pretty much in any kind of hierarchy. If you're rich, the poor will resent you. If you're kind, the hateful will resent you. If you're beautiful, the ugly will resent you. Envy is one of the worst traits for human beings as a species. We all want what we cannot have. This person asks, why are some men rude to women when they think she's pretty? They think she must be stuck up. The response is, more than likely, most guys don't have a chance with an attractive woman like this, so it's easier to let themselves down by saying she's a lesbian, a bitch, stuck up, instead of facing the fact that she's an attractive woman who is probably heterosexual, but for whatever reason she doesn't want you. Sorry.
Pretty privilege in pop culture. Who has it? And does it even matter if it means you end up with a man that lacks integrity?
I think Love is Blind is a good reference point when it comes to pretty privilege in pop culture. And I do want to make reference to season 6 in particular, and also season 2 in a way. But I need to go find the name of the couple. But there was this Indian couple in season 2. And I'll probably put like a clip in here or something, or I'll throw it somewhere in the video at some point, where like the Indian guy had already had a type. He liked skinny blondes or something like that. And then he ended up falling in love with an Indian girl who was a more darker skinned Indian girl who had been overweight at some point in her life. And then she lost the weight. And you could just see through the way that he interacted with her that he wasn't very attracted to her.
What's your name?
My name is Deepti.
So you're the... Holy shit.
Hi.
That booty, look at that booty.
So she's like the number one idol. Like so fucking I do it feels like I moved my hand or something.
The physical part of the relationship, we should be like on top of each other nonstop. It's not instinctual to me right now.
I want him to like pull me in and like kiss me. I want him to like show affection.
So they didn't end up together. He was very superficial and it didn't work out, which is something I don't understand. Like, why go on a show called Love is Blind if looks is like the biggest priority for you? But I think the bigger thing for me is like season 6, which I will definitely include somewhere. So we have AD and we have Clay. Clay is an attractive guy and he gets along with AD. And they start a relationship. Now, let me tell you something about AD. AD's body is tea. Her body is tea. But if I'm also going to be honest, not to put down no shade to AD, AD's still a very beautiful woman. And I think the opinion that I have, and it might be controversial, but many women have also shared these same opinions online, is that if AD was his type, because Clay, while they were in the pods, you're not supposed to talk about looks because that's the whole point of the show. It's called Love is Blind. You're supposed to fall in love with someone without seeing them. It shouldn't be based on looks. It should be based on character, personality, other things that you do have in common with this person. And I remember him asking her, he says something, and I will link the clip. And he says, oh, but if I'm not attracted, like it's not going to go anywhere or something like that. Or he was mentioning looks and he made a lot of references to looks. And I remember she was quite offended by him even making such a suggestion, considering the fact that the name of the show was Love is Blind.
So like my worst fear is like we fall in love, we do the reveal, and it's like we never really talked about physical, and like that is important to me. Like, you know, be super turned on by my wife.
You want to talk about appearance in a experiment where we're not talking about appearance. You have like a specific thing that you're hoping comes through that door.
Kind of lean towards more like petite. My favorite attribute is like lips. But that sounds like so shallow and all that. But if I'm gonna propose, that's something I need to know.
But like Clay is extremely hung up on appearance.
So they get together, and over the course of them meeting and going on that whole honeymoon part of the show, he kept talking about her body, her body, her body, but he never once called her beautiful. And I think it's really because he was never attracted to her face.
Okay, body.
You see them? And there you have it. They are both, in fact, toxic. As she's walking up the aisle, the first thing he says is, okay, body. And then she responds, do you see the material? You are objectifying yourself as you are walking.
And even in him not marrying her, he ends up saying that he didn't marry her because he felt like he came from a family where his father cheated and he felt like he was going to cheat. I disagree. I don't think it had anything to do with that. If AD was, and again, this is controversial, but if we are speaking about Black men, specifically African-American men, they do tend to have a preference. And the preference isn't actually white, although a lot of people think it's white. No, it's light-skinned, maybe light eyes, long curly hair. That's usually what it is. And I feel like if there was a light-skinned girl with a super pretty face, with long curly hair, who had walked into that place, he would have married her, even if he would have cheated on her. He would have said yes. He said AD was the love of his life, so why didn't he marry her? It had a lot to do with him not necessarily liking her face. I believe that, and I think it has a lot to do with I also want to talk about Jessica, Jimmy, and Chelsea from season 6. I genuinely feel like, if we're going to be honest, Jimmy actually did prefer Jessica, even in the pods.
I've never been more sure that Chelsea is someone. I've never been more sure that Jessica.
But because he knew Jessica was a mom, and because Chelsea lied to him and said she looked like Megan Fox, I feel like he chose Chelsea subconsciously because he's a man, because of the looks. He chose Chelsea assuming that she looked like Megan Fox because he would have wanted a Megan Fox, and assuming that maybe because Jessica was a mom that she may not have looked nice. Because in the rest of the season, when she says like he's going to need an EpiPen because he's going to choke when he sees what he lost out on.
When you see and realize what you missed out on, you are going to choke. You're going to choke. You are going to need your EpiPen to open up your airways because you are going to be in disbelief of what you missed out on.
The truth is, he did almost choke and need an EpiPen when he did see Jessica because she is stunning.
I care about you a lot, and in reality, you were my number one still.
And part of his problem with Chelsea was that he was not physically attracted to her. He didn't call her beautiful. He struggled to look at her face. He was not very pleasant to her. Even during the proposal, when they had that scene of her running down the aisle like a dinosaur, and he was just looking at her, he was in shock.
I can't run. Oh my goodness. Here.
You're so handsome.
Thank you. I actually thought that you were lying to me for a little bit.
I'm so happy. I'm so happy. Is that what you expected?
She definitely lied to me. Looked like Megan Fox.
That was like one of the first time in my life that I saw it be so evident that somebody was with somebody that they were not attracted to.
Like, she told me that I'll be holding my breath when I see what she looks like.
You are going to choke.
Oh no.
You're gonna see her.
I could say I can't wait to get there, but I can't wait. Some people think it's a diss, but you have big square white teeth.
I noticed your pretty eyes. That was a nice answer.
I said you're pretty teeth.
You still like me?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Feeling not a doubt in my mind.
As long as you don't feel different.
Right, and I think part of why their relationship didn't work had a lot to do with the looks part of the relationship. So there is no doubt that men definitely do have, certain feelings when it comes to looks. But I just felt like these were really good pop culture reference points when it came to looks and pretty privilege and how it impacts the way that people are treated and whatnot, So there's that.
Storytime. Bullying, competing for boys, hostile colleagues, weird friends, and insecure love interests.
I can definitely say that I've had my fair share of stories in terms of the bullying that you can suffer when people don't know how to respond to what you look like. I remember I was in this relationship, and I think as I got older, I started to recognize it for what it is, because when I was younger, I couldn't put two and two together. This is one time I was in law school, right? And I met this guy, and we were all in this big group of friends, and he and I started talking, and then we eventually start dating. And I had no idea he had something going on with somebody else. I wasn't friends with this girl. I didn't know her. She happened to be the roommate of a friend of a friend, right? So that was pretty much the relationship I had with this person. It was weeks after I started speaking to this guy, then he was telling me that, oh yeah, he had a thing with this girl. So apparently in the first week of law school, when he first got there, he didn't really have accommodation. So then I don't know why she would do that, but then she happened to give him a place to stay or whatever. So they hook up. So then he and I start talking, and then eventually over time, because we were in the first part of law school, lasted 3 or 4 months or something like that. And then we go to a house party, and me and him are there, we're having a great time, and then out of nowhere, I just see a drink thrown in my face. I don't even know where it comes from. But in all honesty, I was having such a great time. I just completely ignored it and just went on about my day. He wanted to say something, I was like, don't say anything about it, just leave it alone. So I think for me, that was the first time it was very much so in my face, although I'd had prior experiences, but I didn't know what it was, and it's never been that aggressive either. So I guess she was upset with him for, telling her he wasn't ready for a relationship and then choosing to be in a relationship with me. So she decided that was how she was going to handle it. And him being a dude, it's I know it had a lot to do with aesthetics. That's just how men are, right? So I guess for her, it's kind of oh, he chose her. So that was I think the first aggressive experience that I had. About 2 years ago, I was in a relationship, and it was a couple of things. This particular one was layered. What had happened was I was out with my ex. There was a girl. Apparently the girl had dated his friend, so I don't really understand why she had an issue with me. And then she had stepped on me. No, actually no. No, this was not the first incident. Let's rewind. In that particular relationship, I remember the first time we were out. I invited him out, but by the time I got there, he kind of got me a table, whatever. Then his friends show up, and they show up with a bunch of girls. And those girls happen to be, it's a mixed group of friends. And then I just noticed that as I'm sitting, I'm kind of being shifted out of my seat, and I don't really understand what's going on. And then one of his friends then explains to me that apparently like he had a thing with the girl. So because she knew I was there and because she knew I was going to read what was on his phone, she started like texting him frantically so that I would see it. And her friends, it was just a very weird thing. But the girls were getting very weird, very handsy, very strange, just to make me uncomfortable. And I don't think that's something that girls usually do unless they feel very intimidated by the other girl, being myself. So that was like the first time something like that had happened. And then there was another time that we were out where like a girl mistakenly spilled a drink on me. But when she spilled it, she spilled it on him and I. But it wasn't a like throw in your face kind of spill. It was like, oh my God. It was that kind of like spilling a drink on you. She messed up his shoes, mistakenly stepped on me to the point where he literally had to like physically move me to another section, to another like table because of the way that she was acting so erratic. And this was like a group of girls. So here's the thing. That guy in particular, my ex at the time, I think he happened to like be the one who paid most of the bills when they went out as a group. So I think for them, it was more of like, I guess, a feeling of like losing the guy with the resources. And also like, who's this girl? She's younger than us. She's quite pretty. And I think also being Nigerian, there are some tribal undertones with certain things. So I'm a northern Nigerian woman. And I kind of feel like there are perceptions that people have of us within the country. So it's like, yeah, it's like usually the stereotype is like northern women are pretty and they have long hair and all this stuff. But I think the takeaway for most people, or what they tend to rely on to make themselves feel better, is usually, oh, but like even if they're pretty, like they're not educated and they're not well spoken. And so when they meet you and you happen to be exposed and you happen to be well spoken and you happen to be educated, the level of intimidation is even worse. So I think with that particular incident, it wasn't just about the bullying in terms of my looks. It had a lot to do with other things as well. And I think he then told me that eventually he told the girl like she had to leave because she was acting blah, blah, blah. But I never witnessed it. But I think he just told me that to make me feel better about the situation. Yeah, I've definitely had my fair share of like, but I think those were blatant instances. So far, I have been stalked, I've been harassed, I've had to get a restraining order against someone. I've had people make fake accounts in order to stalk me, in order to harass me. The list goes on. I might do a story time on my restraining order and stalking stories if I ever get the chance to do so. But yeah, I've seen some things, most definitely. I mean, even when it comes to like workplaces, usually when you work in like corporate spaces, there's an expectation for you to like dress up, to look good, to look nice. But I think at some point, because I've had a few jobs, and I realized that I couldn't do certain things because of the way that it rubbed people the wrong way. And I think especially in Nigeria, because there are certain issues, especially if you're a young woman and if people might think you have a certain level of privilege, it just gets worse. Like the more privilege in certain areas you have, the worse you get treated, especially if the environment is more female. So it's kind of like the women, especially if they're older, might treat you a particular way. And then I think the negative side of interacting with men in the workplace is that they will harass you and bother you. Whether it's the ones that bother you for your number, or the ones who make very inappropriate suggestions towards you, or the ones who give you inappropriate compliments, whatever it is. And it seems if you happen to be conventionally attractive and you work in an office space, like there is an unspoken rule that you're not allowed to do what other people in the office do. So if other women get ready and they dress nice and they come to work, it's normal. When you do it, there will be kind of like a perception that you only care about looks, or that you're doing it for attention, when it's like you're not doing anything different to what everybody else is doing. It's just that when you do it, even if you're doing the same thing, you stand out more. So there is a certain level of vitriol that you will receive. So you're basically bound to get a lot of shit for doing the exact same thing that everybody else is doing. I think even in friendships, you might notice that sometimes exceptionally attractive women tend to move in groups, because over time they find that being in friendships with women who might not be as attractive as them can become very competitive and can become very hostile. They might sabotage your relationships. They will try to find flaws within you. They will try to hurt you, especially in a culture like Nigeria where people do juju and all that stuff. When you go to events, they'll try to accuse you of trying to upstage the bride. Is it your birthday? Is it your wedding? When really and truly you're just being yourself. Maybe you just have a nice fashion sense, and maybe you just enjoy certain things, or maybe you're really good at hair and makeup, but people always try to assume you're trying to upstage them when you're really just only being yourself, right? You will have friends who will project their insecurities onto you. say things like, oh, I'm not wearing makeup, you shouldn't wear makeup, or I'm not dressing like this, you shouldn't dress like this, dress down because I'm dressed down today. It's just constantly never ending. You will suffer the game of comparison. People will try to compare themselves with you. They're always trying to find flaws with you. I think in my experience, I think ever since I was a child, I kind of like picked up on this, and I never really understood why until I got older. But I would notice that like there would be highlighted comments, especially for me, on the way that I looked in comparison to other people. So, and it was always like looking for flaws within me. I remember when I was really young, an aunt said to me, so here's the thing, on a worldwide scale, I'm relatively a darker person. Because in Nigeria, people are, the vast majority of people in Nigeria are quite dark. So they would consider me to be relatively light skinned. And I remember an aunt saying to me, oh, you're not pretty. I can't remember if it was my sister or my cousin she was saying something about, but she was like, oh, don't think you're prettier than her because you're light skinned. And I was like, where is the correlation? I never said this. You came up with this assumption. And I know she probably did it because culturally, even to children, people do say things about people who have darker skin. But I don't know why she would say that to a child. But I remember her saying that to me, and I was like, why would you say that? Like, there is no need to bring down another person to prop up someone else. Or you would notice that, like, if you happen to be like the pretty one in a group, people would have negative things to say about you and your looks, or they would try to find flaws within you. But then people who were not conventionally attractive did not get any criticism. But with you, there was always like a need to bring you down. I remember there was a guy who said to me, he was like, oh, I don't know if you're just light skinned or if you're pretty. I don't know if you're actually pretty or if it's just because you're light skinned. And I'm like, first of all, this guy, he was on like the same level of attractiveness as like Flavor Flav. I don't know why he felt like he was in any position to speak about anyone's attractiveness. The truth is, it doesn't bother me. I look like my mom, right? And she's actually prettier than I am, and she's darker than me. Look at her, absolutely stunning. So like for someone to say, oh, I don't know if it's just because you're lighter, it's just like it wouldn't matter what skin tone I was, I would still be very attractive. Thank you very much. But there's a constant need for people to put you down. It doesn't matter if it's random people, random strangers, people at work, friends, people that you date. For some weird reason, you get an equal amount of insults as you do compliments. It's very strange, but it happens all the time. Or you would find that like you meet a guy and he's like super nervous being around you because of how attracted he is to you. And then over time, as you get to know each other, or as you even get into a relationship, they'll start to find things to talk about. Like, say for example, the guy is into like skinny girls and he meets you and you're skinny. But then suddenly now he's trying to tell you to gain weight. But you were nervous and you were shaking and quaking, acting like you had just seen a goddess. And I've just noticed this pattern even with other people where like a guy could meet a girl and she's thick and he was nervous around her, quaking around her because he's super into thick girls. And then the moment he gets into a relationship with her now, suddenly she's too big. But I thought you were attracted to her. You were shaking and quaking to be in her presence, but now she's too fat. It makes no sense. So I think there's just always a need to knock you down. And I think specifically when it comes to dating, I think a lot of men do that because when they're in a relationship with an attractive woman, it highlights their own insecurities and it highlights their own inadequacies. And they realize and understand that another man could take them away from him, could take her away from him. And so the solution for him is now then to humble her and put her down so that he can feel better about himself. Or more so, he puts her down so that she doesn't feel like she's good enough to leave him, while knowing that she's still out of his league. It's mental gymnastics, you know. But I think it's also really important for women to like recognize and notice these. Apart from bullying, higher likelihood of being harassed sexually, although obviously this is something that happens to most women. Most women go through this. But I think the experience for women who might be a bit more attractive is completely different. I literally recorded a whole segment and lost it, and I'm not happy about it. But anyway.
So let's talk about Malena.
In regards to the dark side of pretty privilege, if there's anything I could use as a really good reference, it would be the movie Malena, starring Monica Bellucci, the stunning, ethereal, otherworldly Monica Bellucci. She is stunning. She has like the most perfect face. She's a really great Italian actress. And I think that movie kind of like encompasses what it's like to exist in a world as a beautiful woman, especially a beautiful woman without the protection of a man. She loses her husband and she goes through a really, really rough time. The men in her town pretty much objectify her. The women bully her. They even beat her and cut her hair. It's very graphic and it's very detailed. And I think even to like amp it up with the objectification, the story isn't told through her eyes. It's told through the eyes of a young man that is coming of age and his voyeurism, because he basically stalks her in order to tell her story. He stalks her, he watches her, he creeps up on her in her home. It's a really interesting story and it does give really great perspective, which somewhat allows you to have empathy for people, because I think sometimes when you see people in a position of privilege, whether it's white people, people with money, beautiful people, it's hard to have empathy for them because it's like you have everything you could possibly desire. Why should I feel bad for you? It gives you a really good perspective. And I think towards the end, she becomes a bit more humanized because she becomes a bit more of an older woman, which is sad, which basically just kind of says you won't be able to live a normal life until you become less appealing or less attractive. There was something that I wrote, and I'm not really going to waste the time to memorize it, so I'm just going to read it off my notes in regards to this. And it's about the loneliness and the isolation that exceptionally attractive people feel. That is not something that receives a lot of empathy from people. So here it goes.
I endeavour to call upon you to be kind, for the prettiest girls are often the loneliest.
When it comes to isolation and loneliness, accepting that even with all the attention, you can only exist comfortably on the fringes of society. So after you've been ogled at and you've been bullied and dealt with jealousy in your friendships, smear campaigns, sabotaged relationships, controlling partners, refused opportunities at work, coerciveness all round, you begin to self-isolate. You trust people less. You become anxious. You're careful and hypervigilant about the friends that you keep and what the men you meet want from you. You will always evoke jealousy from women, and you will always evoke desire from men. You can get them to do what you want, and it's power, but bottom power, that is. But what use is it when it leaves you vulnerable prey as a little girl, worshipped and idealized, yet under pressure as a young woman, then discardable and devalued by the time you're 50? What use is it? All I can say is, it's not what you think it is, it's not what it's propped up to be. It's a gift and a curse. The privileges are tangible and visible to the eye. Its misgivings and pain hidden away, having broken many souls and spirits over time. I think what we miss as a society when it comes to exceptionally attractive people, again, is the difficulty to have empathy, because it's kind of like you get all these things. But I think what people don't understand is, even if being attractive can get you jobs and it can get you access to partners and it can get you access to money and all that type of stuff, it's like there is one thing, well, two things that being exceptionally attractive cannot get you, which is true love. And I don't mean people wanting you and people being attracted to you. True, authentic love and respect. You're not going to get it. If anything, you become more dehumanized and more objectified than anything. I remember an ex telling me, like, asking me this question. He was like, wouldn't you prefer for people to pretend to love you than for you to not get any attention at all? I was like, no, because if it's not real, why would I want it? Right? I think the pleasure in having certain human experiences is in knowing that they are authentic. Right? It's like, there are girls who only become friends or seek to become friends with attractive girls because they're trying to find out if that girl has flaws. What does she look like without makeup? Oh, she looks nice without makeup. Or what flaw does she have? Does she look like this? Is that fake? Is this fake? They're trying to find your flaws. So even a lot of the time, the friendships are not authentic. Or it might even be because they're trying to be associated with you, because it means they have more access to desirable men. Some girls try to spark up friendships with some people because they're more likely to be on the tables that have the bottles in the club, or they're more likely to have access to be getting to be on certain vacations or going to certain places because they know that this beautiful woman might attract a certain type of guy and they'll get to benefit from it. So a lot of the time the friendships are not authentic. And then when it comes to dating, it's kind of like you meet men, but you're always kind of like on the lookout, like what does he want? Is this somebody who wants to be associated with me? He wants to go around and tell people that he's met me or he's dated me or he's had access to me, or he's going to go create some lie, some rumor to smear campaign or ruin your reputation and say all sorts of things about you. It's tough, and people don't really recognize that side. And again, like I said, it's very hard to feel bad for these people because the assumption is that they have it all, but it's not what people think. I've experienced someone saying that something happened between me and them when it never did. I have friends who have experienced the same, and I'm sure that these people are running around and telling these stories. I remember a friend of mine coming to him and telling me that a guy that we both knew from law school came around and was telling him that how he bumped into me and I was trying to give him my number, but then I couldn't do it. It was some stupid shit, and I was never interested in this guy ever in my life. That was never the case. It was never the case between me and this person, but he would make these stories up, and it wasn't the first time. It's happened to me countless times. And people will believe these things because people are always also trying to believe the negative things about you. Friendships can be rough, especially with because I believe men and women can be friends. I have male friends and it's perfectly fine. But I remember we were at a friend's house like a few years ago, and people were asking one of like my male best friends, they were asking me, how are you capable of being friends with her? And the guy goes, oh, there's no way I could possibly be friends with her. Like, nah, like the way, nah, I couldn't control myself around her. There's no way I could possibly be friends with her. And it's like, well, great, thank God, stay away from me. But I felt like, one, the shamelessness of saying that to my face was very strange. But it was also like the dehumanization of like, you can't see me as a human being. It was just very strange. So you experience that. People can't see you as a person. Sometimes your friendships are inauthentic. You can also experience in your female friendships where you have a female friend, once she gets into a relationship, she doesn't want to speak to you or she doesn't want to be friends with you because she feels like her man might be attracted to you. It's very strange because you'll end up having people feel a certain way about you that has nothing to do with anything that you in particular have done. But I think one of the roughest things is authentic relationships.
Sadly, a man who will take the time to appreciate you for who you truly are is like a needle in a haystack, hard to find, but easiest to miss. And for that, I am truly sorry.
Even if you find yourself in what's supposed to be a loving relationship, there is a high likelihood that your looks will carry more weight than your character. And no, I know a lot of people will be like, oh, then have more than looks to offer. See, here's the thing. I can speak from personal experience. I am very adventurous. I am highly interesting. I am highly intelligent. And no, I'm not patting myself on the back, but I'm trying to get the point across. I have very, very intricate interests. I read a lot. What I do for fun is watch documentaries. So I guess that's a bit boring, but I have a bunch of interests. There is so much to talk about with me. There's never a dull moment, but I can guarantee you most of the time they're just staring at you. And I think that can be a bit objectifying and it can be a bit dehumanizing. Right. And so you could be all those things. You could have all these interests, you could be all of those things, and your looks will still be at the forefront of everything more than all the other interesting things that you have to offer. And it can be tough. And I think many people are deserving of empathy when it comes to that, especially over things that they cannot control. Even when it comes to the conversation about like, oh, good looking people are bitchy, it's like, are they? Or do you lack the empathy to also see their reality? I think for most good looking people, especially women, but men also go through this. I think good looking men get bullied too in their own way. But because men's value isn't associated to their looks as much as it is for women, the experience is slightly different. But when you've grown up being bullied, whether it's the girls who had the really long hair that had their hair tugged at, or the girls who were pretty who didn't understand why they were being bullied by the other girls, or boys being very strange and objectifying you, whatever it is, once you've lived a life like that, your guard will go up automatically because you're trying to protect yourself, because you're looking at every corner like, is this real? Is this authentic? What does this person want from me? It's kind of like the same thing as rich people, right? It's kind of like why famous people will tell you like they keep their friends, their day ones that they grew up with, or the people they went to school with, because they know that once you become successful, people will want to come into your life and take advantage of you. It's a normal thing that's going to happen, and so they keep their day ones around. I think good looking people can also have experiences where they meet people and they don't know what they want. Like, is it because you want access? Is it because you want to go say some things about me and claim that it's true? Is it because you want to use me? Whatever it is. And so most of the time they will have their guard up because of the life that they've lived. But it's just easier for people to be like, she's a bitch or he's an asshole. And it's really not that. Like, or people thinking that you don't speak to them because you're stuck up or you think you're better than them, when the reality is that you might have social anxiety because of the life that you've lived, or you might be shy. There is a possibility that a good looking person is shy. I actually remember my ex saying to me, like, he was speaking about like his insecurities or whatever, and I kind of found it a bit dehumanizing when I spoke about mine, and he was like, I couldn't imagine that you could possibly have any physical insecurities. And I was like, well, that wasn't very reassuring, considering the fact that I give you a lot of validation when you go through struggles. It's strange that you would just deny that I had any. And that's something that can happen all the time in relationships and friendships. People just think your life is perfect. Actually, somebody said something to me, just like, oh, these niggas must be offering things to you all the time. And I'm like, you do understand that most people don't offer things to people for free. So unless you're willing to do certain things, you're not going to have access to certain things. I think people just assume that if you're good looking, people just throw themselves at you. It's like, no, they throw themselves at you with the hope, right, that they're going to get something out of it. It's not just because, right? And so I think that's what people also don't necessarily understand. It's a very lonely existence. And I think there's also different degrees to it. Like, I'm sure the girls that are even way more attractive than I am, or the girls who are like naturally built a certain way, or the BBL babes have a completely different reality to me. And it might be even way worse, to the extent that they are objectified and the things that people expect from them and the level of violence that they have to suffer. Because I'm sure like the guys that are out here buying the G-Wagons and doing the private jet trips are not very kind. I can presume they're very entitled. So it's not necessarily what people think it is. I think on the outside, when you see the things that are being done for people that are good looking, or their relationships online and all that stuff, you think, oh, this person has a perfect life. But the truth is they suffer so much in the background because of the level of objectification. Conventionally attractive people do suffer, even within their relationships. Conventionally attractive people are less likely to find real love. You're more likely to meet people who want to possess you and control you, but not someone who actually loves you in a way where they value your well-being. So you might find yourself in a relationship where they want to keep you in the house, or they don't want you to work where other men are, or they want you to change the way that you dress because your clothes are too tight, or they want you to stop wearing makeup because it makes you way more noticeable. Whatever it is, there is a control that comes with you being attractive. So it's like there's a dichotomy and a weird thing going on in your relationships where it's like this person is extremely attracted to you, but they also want to control you because they don't know how else they can keep you, because they have these deep-rooted insecurities that make them feel like you could leave them at any point in time. And so they try to find so many different ways and tactics to manipulate you into staying with them. When really and truly, when you think about it, it's like a conventionally attractive person isn't like a mermaid or a magic creature. Maybe if you try just simple kindness and love, you might be able to keep them instead of the manipulation tactics. So it's tough. And this is like before we even go into like possible acid attacks and ruining women's faces and the jealousy that comes with women. I mean, some women have been murdered for being attractive. So regardless of what privilege somebody might have, especially if it's just looks, because, you know, not all beautiful women or people have access to money. Yes, sometimes people might be nice to them, but the extremes are equal. There's extreme kindness and extreme bullying and extreme abuse as well that comes into this. I would just like to call on people to be kind. I think we need a bit more kindness. So if you've ever seen a pretty girl and you thought, she must have a perfect life, therefore I can bully her or look at her some type of way or objectify her, don't. Try not to, because she might be going through a lot. She might be having a rough time. Her life is not perfect. It's not what you think it is. And you might also want to do some inner work and check within yourself as to what self-esteem issues, what other problems you have that would lead you to want to bully a person in that way. People also talk about like how, oh, good-looking people like to complain. I've seen a lot of like online discourse about like whenever people talk about like the dark side of pretty privilege, and it's always like, oh, but I'm sure you wouldn't give up your life for the life of an ugly person. And I'm like, I don't think any attractive person is complaining about being attractive. That's not what they're complaining about. They're complaining about the way society perceives them and the way that they're treated, the way that they're sexualized, the way that they're objectified, the way that they are bullied. That's what they're complaining about. I remember actually some guy said something about like how, oh, if your only problem in life is the fallout from you being attractive, then you don't have any problems. And I'm like, who says so? There are women who've literally been cheated on because they were attractive. Yes, that happens. A lot of the time, actually, good-looking women tend to get cheated on the most because their partners tend to be way more insecure. They're way more likely to think the woman will leave them. So they cheat on her in fear that she will leave due to their insecurities. They cheat on her because they believe that there is no way that she wouldn't respond to the amount of attention that she gets from men. So in order to feel better about themselves, or in order to feel like they won't deal with the fallout from her leaving or have to deal with the emotional pain of her leaving, they decide to cheat on her. Some men cheat on their beautiful women to humble them, to make them feel like they're not that attractive. There's all sorts of manipulation that beautiful women go through. Beautiful women suffer with their in-laws. Oh, she's gonna come and manipulate our son. She's gonna come and do this. She's gonna come and do that. So you suffer in those environments too, simply for being attractive. If you happen to be attractive and young, you will suffer in the workplace, especially if you're dealing with older women that haven't worked through their own issues. You will suffer in the workplace because you're being made uncomfortable by your boss. And I'm sure this happens to women in general, but I can guarantee you, women who look a particular way suffer from this even worse. It's not what people think it is. So I don't think beautiful people are saying, oh, I hate being attractive. No, it's that I would like to exist in my attractiveness without being bullied and sexualized and objectified and being treated like I'm not a human being. That's what the problem is. That's where this comes from. There is a lot of hate. There is a lot of bullying. There is a lot of dislike. And there is a lot of inauthenticity in relationships. It's way harder for you to meet somebody who likes you for who you are. You are way more likely as an attractive woman to come across very superficial men. It's very hard for you to meet the type of men who would love you for who you are, because unfortunately, a lot of those guys don't tend to be arrogant. And due to their own humility, they would think they might not be good enough and therefore they will not approach you. So you're left with a heap of superficial dudes who tend to only care about the outside. So you're not going to get any deeper with any of those people. So I think that's stuff that people really don't understand, because they might see beautiful women with like desirable or high value man and assume that her life is perfect. It's like, yeah, she might have all the gifts and the fun and the soft life, but I'm telling you now, that man's personality is awful. I can guarantee you, like 95% of the time, he's an awful person. So, and we can look at this through the life of Marilyn Monroe, Dorothy Dandridge, even the life of Kim Kardashian and Kanye, talking about how she's the most beautiful woman in the world, and yet look at how he spoke about her and look at how he treated her throughout their marriage and even after their divorce. Yes, he did all the extravagant stuff and he brought out all the gifts and he did all this stuff and all that, but like, he didn't value her for who she was. I don't even think he knew who she was, truly. So I think people just tend to dehumanize you when you happen to be attractive, but they don't understand that it's a very sad and very lonely existence, a lot of the time, for things that people cannot control. So there's that. So I think, yeah, like I said, I'm calling upon people to try to be kind, because it really isn't what you think it is. And yes, I do recognize it is a privilege, but it does come with some shit. It's also like this thing of like, okay, so now that you're attractive and you've been attractive all your life, the standards are really, really high. What's going to happen when you marry that guy who might care more about your looks? When you get pregnant, when you have a baby, when your body changes, right? Sometimes there's a benefit in being relatively average because the expectations are not that high, you know? But when people are used to seeing you a particular way, you cannot be flawed. You don't have the opportunity to be flawed. People don't expect you to have a personality. There's so much that goes into it, man. And it's really not what people think it is. And I think what I would like people to understand is that the beautiful people around you do not have perfect lives. They don't really have that many friends, true friends at least. Their relationships might look perfect, but aren't. People don't approach them enough because they fear them or feel inadequate. They are both loved and hated for something they cannot control. The list goes on. I just need you to know that if you envy the material things and the affection that these people get, you should also consider that they might still long for genuine love, true friendship, kindness, affection, a world that does not treat them as a spectacle or an enemy, but rather an equal human being with thoughts, wants, needs, inadequacies, and flaws, just like you. And I'll leave you with Halle Berry's words on her exceptional beauty. She says, "This has not spared me any heartbreak, heartache, fearful or tearful moment. Trust me.